Okay, so welcome back everyone to the next episode of the My Generation podcast, and on today's show we are talking about the art of music. I've always been fascinated by our enjoyment of music, what music we listen to, and how the creative process of making music works. So today I wanted to speak to Leo Ulph, the lead singer and guitarist for the indie rock ironic pop band Wake Up Leo. Leo's music is described as fizzes of guitar and synth with huge choruses and fragile refrains. And as a fan of indie rock bands such as Lansdowne, Manic Bloom and more, I wanted to discover what it was like to create this genre of music. So, Leo, welcome to the show.
Hello, Max. What a pleasure it is to be here.
Thank you very much for joining us today. I just had a few questions for you, starting really with, who are Wake Up Leo?
Wake Up Leo actually is me. It's a solo project, really, and it came about from... Well, I've been doing music for a long time, and I was in a band called Signals Red a little while ago, and we decided to make the decision to play covers because, you know, there wasn't a creative process really. So we thought, you know, to get going, to learn music, what we'll do, we will play covers, we'll learn how to play contemporary songs, practice that way and get to know each other as a band. And of course, what happened with that really is that you fall into a bit of a routine, and you go out and you get a bit of money, play some covers, and you know, it's just keep doing this, the same routine perpetuates. And I really got the urge to start writing my own music. I've always been a creative character, and it just occurred to me as we tried to write together, and this is very interesting, you know, as you find when you spend time creatively with other people, you can't make any assumptions, because the four of us, we thought, shared a common interest in music and bands, but actually when it came to the writing process, things like the heavier side, the metaler side or whatever, would come out in the other band members, and you'd end up with this really weird hybrid Frankenstein song.
So too many voices in the room.
100%. You know, it's a too many cooks thing, and you end up with something that I don't think anybody likes all of. I mean, I remember we had one song, we never gave it a title, it ended up being called Da 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 Da, because it had this metal riff, da 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 da. And so you had the verse rather, which was mine, which was quite sweet, and then you kick in with this kind of metal riff, and there was kind of a trip-hop thing, I think, that happened afterwards.
Sort of like how Bohemian Rhapsody goes through 100 different things.
Absolutely, absolutely. And I know there's definitely a song by Radiohead, which I absolutely love, called Paranoid Android, which is exactly that. Paranoid Android is all four of them putting in this whole different thing. But Radiohead were well settled by then. They could do that. And so I wasn't particularly... I wasn't unhappy, because I love the guys and I love them dearly still. But it wasn't my vision. So I went away... I'm rambling on now, but I went away and decided what I'm going to do is I'm going to write my own music. And I did, and I took some time off work, spent 2 or 3 months just penning some songs and getting in touch with the producer, and we wrote some music together, and that is how Wake Up Leo was born. The name,
yeah, explain the name. I
mean, anybody, Max, and I'm sure people listening to this will have been in the same boat, that's tried to pen themselves a pseudonym, it's impossible. You write down, I mean, I had pages of things, 1,000 arrows and whatever it might be, a million tree. You instantly go for something that is very pretentious. It goes without saying, have to, because it's got to sound good, isn't it?
Yep.
And then you realise that nothing sounds good until it just gets repeated and repeated and repeated. That's just how...
Because you've got to keep saying that name.
Absolutely, that's how psychology works, right? The first time Red Hot Chili Peppers probably pitched themselves, people went, what? But now...
Yeah,
they're Red Hot Chili Peppers.
So I've started getting into like, is it post-rock?
Okay.
And all of the band names sound like song names because they're all really long, yeah. And you can't tell what's a song, what's an album, what's a band.
What's an EP. Absolutely, that's right. And it is. And I decided, well, look, I am it, so I'm going to put my name in it somewhere. And I figured, well, Wake Up, that's interesting. Well, there's been so many. For starters, I've been known to snooze in, so on that level, wake up.
That is true.
And secondly, wake up and smell the coffee. There's a whole world out there, and there's a lot that you can do. So snap out of it, sunshine, and get out there and create and do what you love.
So
doing.
That's the reason you get out of bed in the morning.
It is.
And that's what you're trying to imprint onto the music.
It is. And also, there's a lot going on in the world at the moment, and we could all do with opening our eyes up a little bit more. So, it's a triumvirate of subtext. How about that?
Lovely. Yeah, well, it's got so many different meanings, and I imagine that translates into the written work. So I wanted to ask some questions about your songwriting process, really. So actually, let's play a song now.
Okay.
We'll play a song here, and Leo, choose which song you would like to play out of all of your favourites.
We'll start off with a song called Nowhere to Go, I think.
In time, you'll be a stand-up member of society, and if you stick with me, we'll try to change just how the world will be. But your eyes shine bright with passion and a wild desire. One day they'll realize we did it all for you. Children by the night, soldiers by the day, told a lie when they were taken away. See it in the fight, see it in your dreams, see it in the lines that blur between nowhere to go, nowhere to go. Come join our crew. There's many things that you can get up to, and if you push on through, I've got a smoking metal toy for you. 'Cause it's right to fight for that which all your heart desires. It might not be the ideal way, but one day you will see. I said, children by the night, soldiers by the day, told a lie when they were taken away. See it in the fight, see it in your dreams, see it in the lines that blur between nowhere to go, nowhere to go. You are the seeds and we've gotta let it go. Everyone needs a little love to see them grow. You are the seeds and we've gotta let it go. Everyone needs a little love. You are the seeds and we've gotta let it go. Everyone needs a little love to see them grow. You are the seeds and we've gotta let it go. Everyone needs a little love. Children by the night, soldiers by the day, told a lie when they were taken away. See it in the fight, see it in your dreams, see it in the lines that blur between nowhere to go, nowhere to go. See it in your eyes, all that you desire, nowhere to go, nowhere to go.
And so, Leo, I'd like to ask you about the song that we have just heard.
Okay.
About why, or what it was like writing that song, and the process of writing it, because now you write on your own rather than with a group.
Yes.
So what was that like?
Well, Nowhere to Go is a song that was born from me watching a documentary on TV about, I think it was child soldiers in Africa. And this isn't particularly, it's not pop fodder really, that kind of thing. But I really think that music is, it's just such a form of expression that you can really put out there. And especially, you know, music is very evocative. So if you can put words to the music, you just end up with this whole kind of mental scape. And Nowhere to Go was born out of that. And I thought, well, crikey, you know, there's a real injustice in the world, and it's kind of embodied in that. There's the thing with Syria as well. And so what I did, you notice at the beginning there's a chanting which kind of goes ooh-ah-rah. In fact, it does go ooh-ah-rah. And I thought that had a real African beat to it, an African chant. So I thought, well, I'm going to start with that, and that was how the writing process that started. I went, right, I know what it's supposed to sound like. Let's start. And this was way out of my comfort zone. I haven't done anything like this before, so I thought I'm going to do that. So we put together a chant, there's harmonies, and then outside of that, I thought, well, what I'm going to do is I'm going to write it from the perspective not of the child soldier, or it might be, but the person that is overseeing, recruiting, kind of manipulating this child soldier. Hence the word goes, in time you'll be a stand-up member of society. That's him convincing this child, whoever it might be, that's the case. And yeah, and it's kind of it's a not a love letter, but it's kind of an exasperation that, for goodness sake, I mean, what's going on? What is going on?
You're getting people to reflect on themselves and put themselves in the position of the child.
Yeah, 100%, and also to draw attention to the situation, that there's things going out there that, and as you said, this is not the sort of thing people tend to necessarily put in music, but
you like to write about the big issues that go unnoticed.
Honestly, look where we are. Just look where we are now. I mean, I'm no way going to bash any other musician, but I think, there's always time for entertainment. But when you hear, people talking about, he loves me, she doesn't love me, blah, blah, always been in music. Oh my goodness, Parliament's just closed down. Look at the Amazon. There's just so many things going on there are to sing about, and there's so many issues, and maybe there always has been. I mean, Bob Dylan's made a career out of it, hasn't he? But yeah, for me, the bigger issues, hopefully in a non-pretentious way, it's just what interests me. So you know what? I think it just needs to be brought attention to.
So that song, that stemmed from a documentary you watched.
It did.
Do you actively go out, and when you're watching and consuming art, because I think documentary is an art, you in a little bit of each piece of art goes into your music, really?
Yeah. Yes, it can do. I'm a big people watcher. And I'm a big everything watcher, to be honest with you. I'm sure you are as well. I think we all are, without even knowing that we are. And you get stimulus from absolutely everything. It's just how long your brain sort of takes to come round and
sometimes you can't remember where the influence came from.
Absolutely true. That's so true. Yes. Yeah. Just I don't do I actively go out and look for stuff? I don't know. It's difficult. The songwriting process. Sometimes you can just sit down and you perhaps know what you want to sing about, but you can't put the music to it. Sometimes you know how the music's going to go, but you can't put the songs to it. Very often I will find myself listening to music to write music.
So do you write, because I'm not a musician at all, and everyone's process is going to be different. Do you write the lyrics first before any sort of rhythm?
Very rarely. Actually, very rarely. Max, I love music so much. Honestly, it is my passion. We're sat here doing what we do, but
I can see it in your eyes.
Honestly, it is the most expressive, evocative, wonderful thing, and there's just so many facets. I love the recording process, I love the writing process, I love the performing process. But yeah, so I've always got tunes and stuff going on in my head, so it's the tunes will come first, and generally speaking I will go, oh, hang on a minute, now that sounds a little bit like bonk, and then I will kind of insert material from there, and there's always a few ideas bouncing around that I can slot it in.
Well, I did want to actually talk about influences, because you talked about your influences.
Okay.
You've mentioned Radiohead and a couple others that you've put out online that you've said have influenced your work, such as the Manchester Orchestra,
yes,
The Cure,
yes,
New Order, The Smiths, and Smashing Pumpkin.
I love Smashing Pumpkin.
And so how have those bands specifically influenced you, if you could choose one or two to go through?
Well, Radiohead, for example, were one of the first bands I really, really got into. They're an interesting one, actually, because on a complete aside, they have basically two halves of their musical catalogue. One, which was kind of a post-Britpop rock-inspired one, and another one which was, and I'm not speaking out of turn here, I think Tom York, the lead singer, admitted himself going to Japan, he effectively had a mental breakdown and had to completely change things, so he ended up with a kind of very rhythm-based Kraftwerk style of music, which is kind of was maintained to a certain extent. But no, with Radiohead, there's a real fragility, and Tom York's lyrics have always been very much about his own experiences. There's like songs called Killer Cars, which is a B-side from the Bends, which is about his thoughts when he was in a car crash, and Killer Cars is about what would happen if I get back in a car, which is kind of crikey,
heavy stuff.
Yeah, but it is. But it's all set. It's all set to kind of ballsy rock music.
So unless you analyse and read into it, you maybe not even notice.
Absolutely right. And this is, I'm sure we'll talk about this. But as a songwriter, very often you think to yourself, when I put this music out, is anyone going to listen to the lyrics? What happens first? Well,
it's like I listened to your performance of Moves Like a Stripper.
Sure.
And I didn't even really think about the lyrics. I absolutely loved the song.
Right.
But I was listening to it in a hotel room, and I was realising, oh my God, the windows are open. What are the people in the rooms next to me thinking?
Yeah, absolutely. But it's lovely that you got lost in the music. I suppose I don't really mind which bit people get lost into, but if you the two together, so they complement and people get that. That's absolutely wonderful. But going on from there, so yes, Radiohead. I love soundscape music, Max. There's just something about kind of a real swooshy, delayed, reverbed guitar on top of everything. The Smiths have obviously got that tied right in. But all of those artists, or at least the majority of the artists that you mentioned there, it's just occurred to me there's a real fragility and kind of self. How am I going to put it? There's this kind of self-reflection within all of these bands. Smashing Pumpkins very much the same. The Cure. I mean, Robert Smith. He's if you ever hear Spider-Man, paralysed by fear of spiders, Spider-Man's having me for dinner tonight. And it's just you just listen to the way that the orchestration is basically like spiders' legs creeping, and it's just wonderful, wonderful stuff. So yeah, I mean those are my influences. I'm going to add things like the Killers into that as well. I think when they came through, I think it was around about 2005, and brought synth back into rock in a completely different ballsy way, chest out, but still with a fragility. People love Mr. Brightside, for example. If you listen to
one of my favourites.
Yeah, but you listen to Mr. Brightside, and that's all about his own angst. The whole thing sounds like a balls out rock song, but it's him imagining that this woman that he's with is with somebody else. Like it's bonkers. So yeah, I think there is what I like from music is when someone is really open with their heart, and it not necessarily a love song. I like the idea of dealing with anxiety, and one of my songs is about that. And I like the idea of people dealing with sometimes the mundanity of life. Just personal, real personal, deep thoughts put to fantastic music. That's what's always done it for me.
Yeah, and so you're someone that obviously makes himself quite aware of the personalness of a song. Like Mr. Brightside, people listen to it in clubs and will dance, but won't really think about it like that. So you appreciate when someone's pouring their heart out into the music. Yes,
that you've nailed that. Absolutely, Max. And I do like songs with a bit of subtext. You ever listen to Pumped Up Kicks by Foster the People?
Yep.
That sounds lovely, doesn't it?
It's a good song.
It's not. It's about school shooting.
Really?
Yeah.
I did not know that.
I know you didn't go back and listen to it.
Wow. And all the songs that we've mentioned in this so far, and now with all this additional subtext that Leo's providing, will all be in the YouTube description, so you can go through and you've got hours of music to listen to. Also, on the 15th episode of the podcast, I talked to Connor Jenkins, who is also a musician, about the power of music, and we've also got more song recommendations there. So you've got hours worth of music to listen to. I also wanted to now focus on a feeling and emotion from you.
Okay.
Because you performed at the O2 in Islington.
Yes, I did.
And I wanted to know what that was like.
Well, sometimes, Max, sometimes you go through music, and we've all played. We've got John Bornett here at BBC Radio Kent that's been around. He was around at the time of the New Romantics. Played music to a good standard, was on top of the pops, and we share anecdotes about how we've all played to 6 people. Right?
Yeah,
and we've all done it. And I think you have to go through that. Frankly, generally, I think the idea of being rocketed to superstardom in your X Factors or your voices, I have nothing against those things, but I just don't think it prepares you to go out and perform. So, when you get the opportunity to go and play good venues, with well-respected artists, it is a buzz, and you get to feel like a rock star. Sometimes you have your own dressing room, and the first time we played it, we played with Eagle Eye Cherry last time, which I was just delighted to do. This guy's a legend. The Cherry's Nana Cherry as well, just royalty really within music. But the first time we played it, we ended up playing with a band called Vama, who were basically turned out to be the Romanian Coldplay. I never knew there were so many Romanians in London. You've got no idea. So we got up to the curtain, and my bass player Paul, I said to him, "Is it busy?" I mean, we knew we brought a few people of our own, which we do, which is great. And I said to him, "Is it busy?" And he said, "Yeah."
You couldn't even imagine the crowd.
No, and we opened it up, and just bang.
How many people?
I mean, it's not massive, but there was
to the nearest million.
No, it was 1,000 plus.
Amazing.
I mean, but there or thereabouts anyway. And you just go out and it's hello, way, and you're prepared for it then, because you've played to 6 people, you've played to 20 people, you've played to 150 people, and you've gone on that journey, and there's just those rewards, and for me, it's the best feeling. I love it. I love to perform, and I love having the confidence in what it is I am performing. And that's a good metaphor for life, you know, Max. Same with what we do here on the radio. If you've done the hard yards and you're confident in what you do, then off you go and do it on a bigger scale. And there's bigger scales than what I've done there at the O2 Islington, but I would like to take that on further. But I think to a degree I have a confidence that we can take that further on, and it's that grounding within practice and confidence, I think. But to answer your question, after rambling on, bloody brilliant. Loved it.
Yeah, and is that probably one of your favourite places you've performed then?
I really enjoy it. Yeah, festivals are really good, but I love those kind of inside spaces where the sound
stays in the room.
Stays right in. If you've got a good sound and you've got a good lighting guy, I made a point I went up to the lighting man with my set list, and I said to him, "Yeah, right now there's this song that comes in first. Now, can you make sure we've got the lights are dark before we come in, because there's going to be some music coming over the top, and then can we have some flashing lights?" And he looked at me and he nodded and he went, "Can you write it down for me?" Yes, of course, that's exactly what I'll do. It's fine.
It's quite important, lighting, isn't it?
I had no idea. Lighting is incredible. If you've got, say you have a big massive pub ending, if you've got the guy that's onto this and does the flicky lights at the same time, wowzers, for the crowd, it's great. You know, you bring down the lights just as someone goes, yeah, boom, boom, lights go down.
It's basically a theatre performance.
It's 100% theatre performance. And that is what you get, you know, with good sound people, good venues, and good lighting people.
And I actually managed to blend, well, not me personally, I know someone who blended the two, because on the 10th episode of the podcast, we spoke to Eleanor, who was an actress in something, I forget the exact name of the play.
Okay.
But if you listen to that episode, you'll see it.
Okay.
And basically, it was about the Mods versus the Rocks.
All right.
And they had a band that stayed at the back of the set for the entire piece.
Okay.
And so when all the story was going on in the front, that would happen. Then during the scene transitions, the lighting would go onto the band and they perform.
Okay.
So it was a mix of both.
Right.
But do you feel that your process on stage is like a performance?
1 gazillion% this and that. And I've been making a point of that. In fact, for that specific gig, I thought, that's what I said to the guys, listen, what we're going to do this time is not just go out and play a collection of songs and speak in between. We're putting on a show. Yeah. So it's a case of, you know, starting off with off stage and having some music playing beforehand. That from Nowhere to Go that we played earlier on, the URAs start on their own, and on we come, and on I come, bang into a song, stop, segue, bang into another song, then have a chat. Yeah. Basically, the whole thing is scripted, it's choreographed, and
you've got an act structure.
Oh, 100%. And the audience, you know, the audience get a performance as well. And let's be honest, that's really what you want. And it doesn't take away the soul of it. It's just that you know what you're doing, and I owe it to the audience to give them the perfect vision of what they would want. I think. God, that's pretentious. It's all true though.
Oh, very. And so before we go on to the next bit,
okay,
one more song.
Yes.
What would you like to play next?
Let's play Friends next.
Friends. And there's a music video for Friends, which you can find on YouTube.
Yeah.
So you can watch the video after that, but this is Friends.
Beautiful open spaces, anxiety replaces. Go on, get on back, put your mind onto the right track. Oh, come on, come on, come on, come on, come on. 'Cause I've got live inside, play with my soul and fight for my mind. I've got friends inside that won't let go, 'cause I've got friends that live inside, play with my soul and fight for my mind. I've got friends inside that won't let go. I wish they'd let me go.
So that's what Leo and I have to say so far about the art of music, but do you have a story to tell on the subject? If so, feel free to leave us a comment here on YouTube, or you can contact the Facebook page at the My Generation Podcast. We'll be featuring comments over the next few episodes, so get them into us. We'll pass your comments all on to Leo. And before we go to local impact, I'd like to tease a few more topics that are coming up in the future of the podcast. So we're going to be talking to George. George is a teacher. We're going to be talking to him about his experience teaching English to kids in Nepal. We're going to be talking to also Megan, who works with student support, and Dana. Also, these three, coincidentally, all teaching related. She's talking about disabilities within the education system. But on our show, Leo, we like to talk about local impact, being a very Kent-based show. Mm-hmm. We spoke to Connor about similar stuff. What would you say for a young, up-and-coming, Kent-based artist is the best steps to take into indie rock and pop?
Okay. Now, I'm glad you asked me this. For any aspiring up-and-coming musician anywhere, I know obviously we'll talk Kent, but anywhere, I would say, if they came to me with some excellent musicianship and some great songs, I would have to say, I don't actually like saying this, great, well done. I'm glad that you've gone through the steps to become an excellent musician. However, now you need to be a marketer, a businessman, an advertiser, a social media expert. I mean, the facets of what you need in music now they've changed so much. I mean, I watched the documentary Supersonic Oasis documentary. I would implore anybody to watch that, actually. Just you'll be mouth wide open about how it used to be. And the fact that the head of Creation Records turned up at a gig where Oasis almost weren't put on to play, and he said, "I'll just let them play," and then spotted them and signed them. Well, here we are, 25 years from yesterday. Whenever this is going out. So
recently there was a 25th anniversary of one of their albums.
Absolutely, and that all came from the back of them turning up in some sweaty pub somewhere and playing 4 songs. That does not happen. You have got to be your own brand. And also, you need to have your own edge. You need an edge. There's no two ways about it.
So you've got the mix of synth and rock, but everyone will have to have their thing.
Max, mate, I don't know if I've got it. I know that I try hard. I'm not great with social media. I know I have to be, so I do. I'm out there. I promote things. But you do. You know, you've got to be on top of things. As with a lot in life these days, especially with social media, it's almost what you're seen to be doing as much as you are doing.
Yeah.
You know? That having been said, you still need to be a good musician. You need things to back it up. And great, you get out there, you play. And you can work that organically. There's lots of places you can play. You can start acoustically. There's venues all the way around Kent. I mean, it's in Tunbridge Wells here. We've got the Forum.
Which you played at recently.
I did, yes. I played there on the bank holiday. What a great place the Forum is. It's a charity now, run by some fantastic people that's seen some bands through. I mean, if you just go back to, for example, the 90s, you know, people like Muse and Coldplay and Oasis, and, you know, going forward from that, Arctic Monkeys. And
have they all played there?
They've all played there.
Wow.
You know, they have. And it's still run by the same team that were there from the very start. Excuse me. And still hosts good acts now. They do a thing called a stable, I think, where, you know, if local acts can sort of just submit their music to go and play, just to get some experience of playing there. And that's the great. I mean, you know, music venues where you should be playing. But if you want to go acoustically, again, Tunbridge Wells, there's places down here. I think there's Margate's has got a good music scene. There's stuff going on.
That's where Connor was from, where his band started.
Well, there you are. You see, Dover's got a place called the Booking Hall. There are certainly places you can go out and play, and I would just implore people just to get together. If they are a band, or just go out and find somewhere to play. They've got the Grey Lady down the road. Paul Dunton does good stuff down there. Get out there and play. Put yourself out there. And when I first started playing acoustically, God, I was talking about it. I was talking about it to Paul. This literally the other day. I said, you know what? We were talking about this after the forum show. He was out with us, and I said, do you remember when we first started? This, my bass player and I staring at goats. We were called 10 years ago, and I said,
it's a good name.
Oh, it was his idea after the men that stare at goats. I never liked it, but nonetheless, that's how it is. And I remember going out there, and I thought, I've got no confidence. So we ended up doing this weird comedy routine in between songs. Where I'm just thinking, I've got to play a song now. I hope everyone doesn't mind it. But it's still, you get out there and you play, and I just implore anybody as a bedroom guitarist, get out there and play in front of anyone.
Even busking.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I'm sure that the stories of Mr. Sheeran just being out there busking, being discovered, are far from true, I would imagine. But yes, absolutely, that's how he's cut his
That's
teeth.
an official call out of Ed Sheeran.
It's not at all. It's not.
So
at
if he's
all.
listening to the podcast,
It's my own assertion. Ed, mate, bros, take me on tour. There you go. Everyone that's been out there and played, you have your own journey, but you only have your own journey by doing it.
And one of my last few questions is about the continuation of the journey. So what would you say is the future for the band so far?
Well. Just more of the same. I've not played as much this year because I've been entrenched, as you well know, Senor, in Radioland.
Yes.
Which is not a good excuse, but I've got 150,000 things going on, but I will keep things ticking over. The next step for me is to write more. I'm going to write more songs in the autumn. I like what we've got so far. We've been playing it together a lot for a while, the same thing. So it's about keeping things fresh. So I will go and write more songs. I will record more songs. I'm going to make some more merchandise. I'm going to make some more T-shirts.
Oh, lovely. Have you got a merch store at the minute already?
Certainly have. And there's the little EP that's there, and there's some T-shirts, but I do need to redesign all those. And next year I'm going to get out and play a lot more. I'm looking for festivals next year. And more good support slots. I do enjoy a good support slot, and maybe a little tour possibly in the spring. I think.
Lovely.
As well, yeah, I think so. 2020 is going to be the music year for me, I think, and that's what I'm going to go for.
Well, this is coming out in October, so we expect big strides.
Crikey.
Big strides at that point, but. That's pretty good stuff for the future for Leo, and all his links are going to be in the YouTube description. Mm-hmm. So we'll be back to Leo just to wrap up in a moment this week's episode about the art of music, but there are future topics that we're still looking for people to talk about, and I'd like to know if you're a graphic designer, what work do you do? If you're between the ages of 18 and 30 and live in Kent, get in touch with the Facebook page and we will look to include you in the podcast. So just to conclude, What would you say you've learnt from today's episode of the podcast, Leo?
I like talking about myself, I think. Yes, I think I've what have I learned from it, crikey?
It's the hardest question.
Well, I think it's when you actually go through this stream of consciousness and talk things out that you're thinking, it kind of makes you solidify things. So what I think I've learned is I definitely want to go out and start writing more music, and I want to play more. What you've done is you've lubricated my love of playing music again. Do you know what?
And on that note, we will finish up. So thank you for coming on the show, Leo.
My pleasure, Max. Thank you.
And you can always check out Wake Up Leo. Have you got any upcoming tours you wanted to promote?
Nothing just yet, but you can always go and find me. There's www.wakeupleo.com or go to Facebook, just type in Wake Up Leo, and I keep stuff updated there. Just go and listen to the music.
And
like it.
Don't just take our word for it. BBC Radio Kent's very own Phil Harrison describes Wake Up Leo as an artist with cracking songs and big personality. Go and see a show now to hear the anthems of the future.
I endorse that. Thanks,
Max. And that concludes this episode of the My Generation podcast. Do subscribe on YouTube to hear more, and we might even be able to get Leo back on the show in 2020 to see how the progress is made with the band and the merch and all the future stuff.
That would be my pleasure.
Thank you for listening, everyone, and we'll catch you next week on the My Generation podcast.